Hello and welcome to the Emerald Art Radio. It's good to have you with us. I'm Alan Cox and my co-host is Dave Ashworth, and with a little bit of luck, Dave will be with us right now. All right, Dave?
Hello, Alan. Hello, listeners. Hope everybody's okay this week, and I hope we have a trouble-free night on this limited broadband connection that we've got here in the Canary Islands.
Yeah, last week it was, we spent half the evening going, are you there? Is that me? Are you there? Can you hear me?
It was a laugh a minute.
Oh, dear me. But so far, it's so good. It's really strange, though, and we were just talking before we come on air, that over here in the UK, I mind at the moment it is pouring down rain, but for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, in the daytime, we've had lovely sunshine. It's been a bit cold, but it's, it was warm yesterday. Today was really cold, but you've been having, what did you say? Very strong winds, almost gale force.
That's right, almost gale force winds all day for the last 2 days. In fact, we finished our spiritual retreat today, and we were actually doing the element of air. So we thought It was quite funny that the wind was really intense last night and carried on this morning. In fact, we were doing a joint element of fire and air today. So we were up in the volcano at Timon Fire, and that's a phenomenal experience. Just to feel the heat that just bursts out of the earth up there. It's incredible. 400 degrees, just below the surface, yeah.
You can get a nice tan with that, I would imagine.
I tell you, the way the wind moves up there, it'll just grasp a bit of that heat and pull it out of the earth, and it's like being hit with a brazier. It's so intense, it's incredible.
I'll tell you what really fascinated me is what you said to me before we came on the air about, it's a volcanic island and it's like black ash. And with all the rain and everything, it's actually been turning green.
Yeah, it's been incredible. When we arrived, 5 weeks ago, it was totally black. Even up to a week ago, everything was just jet black. And last Saturday, the first people arrived for the retreat that took place this week, and the rain started the day they came. It's rained every day since, and day by day, the island has turned green. Everything has sprouted up through this black ash, and it's quite phenomenal to see the transformation.
And and like you said, I wonder if it's anything to do with the Emerald Heart, and you all being there. It does make you wonder, doesn't it?
Well, it does make you. The most amazing thing happened on Wednesday morning as we headed up to the retreat centre. We've got a drive of about 25 minutes from where we're staying up into the mountain. And as we were heading out of town up into the mountains, there was a fabulous rainbow, and the colours in the rainbow in these islands is absolutely incredible. The intensity is brilliant. And as we're going up the mountain, this rainbow is getting closer and closer, or we're getting closer and closer to the rainbow. Well, as we understand the laws of physics, the rainbow should be moving away as we're getting closer to it.
Right.
But yes. At one point, the rainbow was actually on the road. The end of the rainbow was on the road in front of the car, and the car behind us, they actually witnessed the rainbow, the end of it, in the car with them. It was incredible.
Wow. Incredible. I've once, a lot of people go through their life and never see that pot of gold at the end. But going back some years ago, I was driving down a country main road near Lichfield, and in the field was the start of the rainbow with a pot of gold, just and everything coming out of it. Now, I don't know how many people ever get to see that, but that memory stayed with me a good many years.
Yeah.
So it's quite amazing, really.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. So, rainbows are amazing things, and we've seen a lot of them this week out here on the island. In particular, the wind has been incredible. As I was saying to you before the show, I like to, if it's a windy night, I always sleep with the window open anyway. But if it's a windy night, I like to have the window wide open so I can listen to the wind as I'm going to sleep. And last night, it woke me up 3 times with such a shock in the heart that I actually had to get up and close the window.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm never going to get any rest. The wind was that intense as it was howling through the palm trees. So
Right.
nature brings up some amazing things for us when it chooses to show us its power.
Well, it's not surprising that this kind of thing has been going on this week. And Spirit got me to put on the topic for the show. What do we learn? What do we learn about ourselves through Spirit? And with all those things that I've had a very particularly intense week, as I've just quickly told you before we came on air, and found different things out about myself. And I no doubt you and Harriet and everybody who's on the course of had these experiences, which will have perhaps learned something new about yourself.
Yeah, indeed. Well, the way Spirit teaches us is by laying down challenges to see how we respond to those challenges. And old patterning, of course, is triggered in old ways. What we have to do is, whenever we're triggered by something, is to just try and maintain the status quo while we feel what's going on inside us. And if we can do that, we can learn to, first of all, understand the patterns that trigger us, and then dissolve those patterns. So what the universe does, or Spirit does, is create situations to show us those patterns and those triggers. And in that process, we have the opportunity to learn about ourselves. So typically what happens is it creates situations where you feel out of control, or it brings up anger, for example. And your normal response to anger is to lash out, usually in some way or other, not necessarily physically, but maybe verbally, and put up a force field against the force which is attacking you. And of course, what goes on in that situation is when one force faces another force, the force is doubled. And so rather than dissolving the energy of the situation, you're actually adding to it. So in this situation where we face challenges, and in a spiritual retreat like we've had this week, the light brings so much up for such a lot of people. They are very, very challenged. And fortunately, we have a good group of people that have learned how to understand the process. And so they don't go off like a firecracker, but they either sit with one of the teachers and discuss it, or they go deep into themselves to see what's actually going on.
So when you say a retreat, what would be okay, how did you actually start the retreat the first day?
Well, what I tend to do is, coming to this island, for example, I spend a bit of time connecting with the energy of the island, with the nature spirit consciousness, the earth mother consciousness, having a look around the island and seeing what jumps out at me that might be something that creates a powerful energetic experience for people. So this is a volcanic island, and so your overall theme has got to be to do with fire. And volcanic action, of course, is the earth erupting, the inner earth coming up through eruption and spreading itself on the surface. So this is a kind of transformation. So you've got a theme of transformation through fire. What I do is I build a skeleton out of the things I can experience here, and then the guidance tends to fill things in. And on the final day, it always brings things to an amazing conclusion. So the first day, for example, was being in the earth. It was connecting with the earth, but also being in the earth. So what we actually did was an exercise of taking ourselves back to the time before this life, and then birthing into this life, going into the darkness of a yurt, which is kind of a tent that is completely dark, which symbolizes the womb. And the guidance speaks while we're in the womb. And I can't actually remember the words that are said because it's all coming through in the moment. But it's a very powerful experience for people. So day 1 is about being in the earth. Day 2 is about being on the surface of the earth and being in the now. So we're coming from the past into the now. And the final day is setting the scene for the future based on the patterns of universal consciousness that are presenting themselves for this coming year. And I think we've already spoken about this coming year being about expansion. So
Yes.
Lots of opportunities for expansion. And so on day 1, we actually went into a collapsed volcano as well in the afternoon. So we walked the lava fields connecting into the surface of the Earth Mother. And then in the afternoon, we went down into a collapsed volcano, which is very womb-like. And that was a very powerful experience for many people, because I'd already been there, connected with the nature spirit consciousness. And as I led the group into this volcano, the spirit of the Earth Mother just came straight up and just opened my heart so much the tears were pouring down my face. And it's at that moment that you know that you're going to have an amazing time, even though that's only the first afternoon. So that's kind of that's the outlined kind of sketch of where we begin. Yeah,
that reminds me actually about learning. What do we learn about ourselves? Going back, I think it's probably about 3 years ago now, and went down to Kent to help a family, and was taken into this church, village church, as part of the clearing, strangely enough, Dave. We're going right into it, but I found myself standing with everybody else there. There was Anne and there was the family. There was about 4 or 5 people there, as well as Anne and myself. And I was standing in front of the altar, and it's never happened to me before. It's never happened since. But the connection was so strong that, totally involuntary, I collapsed onto my knees, and the tears were actually pouring. You were saying about tears down my face, and it was one of the most surreal but intense experiences that I've ever had. And strange thing is, Dave, it's even now I'm still trying to perhaps come to terms or even understand what actually went on then.
Yeah. Well, what's actually happening in that situation is the universe creates a situation whereby it can burst open the heart. So the guidance usually describes the heart to me like a flower, and it has petals. And the guidance has a saying that for each tear that falls is another petal of the heart opening. So what happens is, at certain points on the path, the universe will hit you with so much light that it bursts open the petals of the heart, and the tears just pour from your eyes. You know, when we were going into the volcano, you know, some of the elders, in actual fact, which are advanced teachers in the Emerald Heart, I mean, the tears were just pouring down people's faces. And that's only on the first day, and it gets more and more intense as the week goes along. And so this is how the light gets in and forces those petals open. And for each petal that opens, it can never, ever close again. So you go through the process, you go through the experience. It then kind of brings up all kinds of questions in your mind. But it's an absolute process of transformation that can never be undone. But of course, what happens in that process of transformation is the vibration shifts, and you very soon, within a day or two usually, you come into line with that new vibration, And so it's as if nothing happened. So you go through a process, and then a couple of days later, you know it happened, but it feels like it didn't happen. But it
Yeah.
actually did, and there's nothing that can undo it. So that's what happens in that situation.
I would imagine there's probably a lot of people with go through their own kind of opening, learning, and at the time perhaps don't realise the significance of what's going on.
Yeah, indeed. We had some people on the retreat this time that have never been on retreats before, and, you know, they always question things. One of the ladies was saying to me tonight, she said, I so wanted to have a good experience. And halfway through the first day, I thought, it's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to feel anything. She said, and by the end of that day, I'd felt so much in my heart. It was absolutely incredible. And she went, by the end of the week, she went through a very, very powerful transformational shift. So, you know, if you step into a place where there is powerful light and you're in that light for several days, you cannot fail to go through life-changing experiences. And quite a number of people on this particular retreat said at the end of the day today, when we were winding up with the closing circle, we have a sharing session, and quite a number shared that they'd actually gone through life-changing experiences and that, you know, their life would never be the same again.
You see, and everybody will, you know, make their way home perhaps over the weekend or whenever, and take the memory of the retreat, but more than the memory, they'll be taking with them something that's altered within them, and it might take them. Some might understand it immediately, and it might take some of them perhaps a long time to really understand what went on within themselves.
That's right, yeah. What the universe does, though, it always tries to provide a confirmation that something has happened, because what happens with our everyday collective consciousness is that we can go through a transformational shift, and a couple of days later we think we made it up. We think it was all part of our imagination. And so what the universe does is it always tries to provide some kind of very tangible confirmation that something did actually happen. And, you know, I ask people to look out for this sign, and invariably it comes quite quickly within a few days. Something will happen. Somebody will say something to them. Quite often people say, what's different about you? Is it your hair? And you say, no, it's not my hair. I haven't changed my hair. What's actually happened is the whole auric picture has changed. The light in the aura has changed. And at a subconscious level, other people that know them pick this change up. They know something has changed, but they can't actually tell what it is. And that's a good sign of confirmation for people that something has happened.
Yeah. It's strange. But early, you know, ever since we've started doing this show together, we've, how can I put this? We haven't had a title, what the show's going to be about, until literally the last minute. And it's always me that puts it on. And it's just like, it just kind of comes to me. Well, it's the guides saying, okay, this is what the topic is for today. And it came, what do we learn from spirit? And you sent me an email and a text, and you and I said what the topic was going to be, and you said to me,
I hope you've got some answers.
Yeah. That's what you said. I hope you have some answers to that one, Alan. And I put spirit guides, guides, but doesn't give us the answers. And you put great answer.
Yeah, great answer indeed. Yeah. Well, they don't give us the answers, but they lay out the pathway to see how we walk it. It's as simple as that. And if you're walking it with your heart wide open, you'll take the right path and you'll find the answers that you're actually, the answers that are actually laid out for you to receive.
Yes.
But if you're not walking it with your heart open, you're going to walk into a lamppost. It's as simple as that.
That's right. That's right. But you see, I suppose, people say that everybody is learning all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So I suppose the title, What Do We Learn from Spirit, about ourselves, or what do we learn about ourselves with the involvement of spirit? But even if we're not consciously linking into spirit, we're in that great school called life, aren't we, on this planet? And all we have to do is reach out and ask God, ask Spirit, for some kind of guidance, for us to make our own mind up, and then it will be given to us. I think what happens in our everyday lives is that we get so wrapped up in the practicalities of everything that we can actually forget that we've got a divine connection that we should connect with, not for just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of everybody else we're interacting with.
That's right. Well, when we were doing the womb phase of this particular retreat, and the guides were taking us through the process of losing soul memory when you incarnate into the physical body, there were some very interesting words that were given. And what the guidance said is the very last thing God says to you at the moment of incarnation is don't forget to listen to your heart. But within these words, there's always a trick, because teachings, divine teachings, are always taught in metaphor. There's always something hidden within the words. So when you get those words, don't forget to listen to your heart, the first thing we do, of course, is we forget that.
Yes.
But if we're lucky enough to maintain something of that, the key word in that is listen. And what the message really is don't forget to hear your heart. So listening is one thing and hearing is another. And in the process of hearing the messages in the heart, you hear the communication from the divine. But of course what happens is we enter this world and we're thrown straight into some kind of machine that is designed to develop humans. But it's not designed to develop humans with any aspect of the spiritual for the vast majority of us. We get thrown into kindergarten, thrown into an education system that is primarily focused on developing the right brain and not the left brain or the heart.
Yes.
So by the time we've finished the education system, we're so disconnected from spirit, so to speak, that, we can't hear anything. And of course, when you think of all the noise in daily life these days, it's quite interesting. In Lanzarote, they seem to have a thing for car park music. Every car park has got speakers with music going on in it. Yeah, it's bizarre. So, but there's noise everywhere in the UK now. You can barely go in a shop without there being music. Whatever happened to silence? It's almost like there's a conspiracy to do away with silence so nobody can hear their own truth anymore.
Well, we know the psychology of it, like with supermarkets. They play a certain type of music that they believe will make us feel more content shopping, staying there a little bit longer. It's all done to get you to pick more items up, stay there a little bit longer. And of course, the other trick is to move everything around now and again so you don't know where everything is. And then they work on the psychology. You walk past something you haven't seen before and pop that into your trolley. So
that's right, yeah.
That they try everything, the manipulation. And I think, that and the sound, the music, it's almost like Big Brother watching you. That it makes you H.G. Wells. It makes you think like that.
Yeah, it does indeed. Yeah. So, what do we learn about ourselves through spirit? Well, it's a very important question, that, because a lot of people learn nothing about themselves through spirit because they're so disconnected. And it's not until you stop and you go into that silence, or you start to work on finding ways to enter the silence within, will you ever hear any message. So I can fully understand some people that have dipped their toe into the spiritual path, or onto the spiritual path, and felt that they've gone nowhere, because they actually do go nowhere. What you've got to do, and I think Rumi spelt this one out, 1,000 years ago or whatever. I can't quite remember when he lived now. But he said you can walk, a 3-day journey will take you 100 years without a guide. Basically, what he was saying was, if you try and walk the spiritual path on your own, it'll take you 100 years to get nowhere. Yeah. Because it's an impossibility. Well, I won't say it's an impossibility, because my own journey's been a little bit different than most people's. But for most people, they need to touch into somebody who is carrying a light. And in the process of connecting with that person who's carrying a light, that light will then illuminate the light within you and start the journey for you. And you have to keep connecting into people that carry the light.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dave. We're at that time when we have to take a break.
Okay.
So please, nobody go anywhere. We'll be back after this. You're listening to the Emerald Art Radio with Dave Ashworth and myself, Alan Cox. So we'll be right back.
You are listening to Paramania Radio.
Potatoes. Yes, I said potatoes. And everybody's saying, what on earth is he talking about? Well, this was the conversation before we come back on air, and Dave says, well, we might as well carry on. So we're going to finish the conversation and you can all listen to about potatoes.
So Alan was planting potatoes this week with his young grandson Zachary, and I was asking him, had he used the bin bag method, or was he planting them in the soil? So he said he was planting them in the soil.
And I must admit, Zachary was enjoying it, actually, digging the little holes and popping the seed potatoes in. So,
oh, that's good. Well, the bin bag method is you get a bin bag and you roll it down to the ground and you put a little bit of compost in. Only a few inches, 3 inches maybe, 4 inches, and you put your seed potatoes into that. And then as they start to grow, you put a little bit more compost and you start rolling the bag up as you put the compost in. And of course the plant is always reaching up for the light, and what you're doing is keep putting layers on and then closing the dark black bin bag up. And in that process, you get, it's very easy because you can move them about because they're in a bag. They're not fixed in the earth. So, if your weather gets particularly bad, you can even put them under shelter if you want to. But you get a very good crop of potatoes. So what I suggest you do is run a bin bag experiment alongside your earthbound potatoes.
Okay,
and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, they seem to be light this winter in the garden centres and that, selling the seed potatoes. Tried to get some before Christmas and couldn't get any. And we went on Thursday, picked Zachary up from nursery, got the seed potatoes, come back, and I haven't put them all in. Reading on there, these are early cropping, get them. They should be able to harvest them in 60 days, and then we could hopefully have a continuous crop through through the spring, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, okay, I'll give that a try.
Give it a try, nothing to lose.
And when you think about it, right, people are saying, what on earth are you talking about potatoes for on a spiritual show? But you need food to live, and you need something good and wholesome to feed your mind as well as your soul.
Indeed. And, potatoes may well be earthbound, but so are we.
Yes, that's true.
for this period in time. And if we think about what do we learn about ourselves through spirit, the more time you spend connecting into nature spirit consciousness, if you start gardening using nature, utilizing the connection with nature spirit consciousness, it's amazing the deep connections you can develop and the ways in which that develops your crop. I wouldn't say I've done this hugely successfully through my life because I've been too busy to do the gardening most of the time, but I have created very nice flower gardens.
Yeah.
And I have on occasion been contacted by flower fairies. I wrote a lovely piece once upon a time where I was contacted by a flower fairy, and it came as a result of just asking an innocent question about creating a vibrational essence. And so the person I was with said to me, what would that, what kind of essence do you think that plant would give if you created an essence from it, Dave? And before I could open my mouth, a little voice spoke in the heart, if you want to know, we will tell you. And so I got a pen and a pad, and over a period of about 20 minutes, this plant didn't stop talking. Well, it was a flower, actually. It didn't stop speaking. And the things it came out with were phenomenal. You couldn't make it up. It was absolutely incredible. And that's, I remember another time, a good number of years ago now, probably about 12, 13 years ago, I was sitting in the sunshine one morning. It was summer. I was taking a few days off, and there were some little nasturtium flowers by my caravan. And I got my chair out in the morning. I sat in the sun. I got myself a cup of herb tea, and I thought, I'm just going to sit here. And I was actually going to read a little book. I can't think of the title of it now, or the author's name. But it was a little spiritual book. And as I sat down, I looked at these little nasturtium flowers, and I thought, you can eat nasturtium flowers, can't you? So this thought came to me. You can eat the leaves, they're quite peppery. And I thought, I wonder what would happen to the fairies in the flower if you ate the flower. And upon that, these fairies appeared out of the flower and told me the whole story in verse. And it was incredible. Again, I jumped off the chair, I grabbed a pen and paper, and I scribbled it all down. So, when we're actually contemplating next to nothing, we're in that space of being really relaxed and almost switched off, this is when nature spirit consciousness can begin to communicate with you. So if you're a vegetable gardener and you put yourself in that position and you're asking the vegetables, where would you like to grow in the garden? You'll get some answers. And of course you can use dowsing for this process as well. You can ask through dowsing, where would the best place be to put the leeks or the potatoes or the carrots, etc.
That's very, very strange you say that, because yesterday I was looking at the patch, and it was like, okay, and said to me, are you going to put them across there, crossways? And I said, no. She said, well, why not? I said, they've got to go this way, meaning the other way, long ways. I said, why? I said, no, that's where they've got to go. I said, oh, okay. And although I didn't hear a voice, it was like I was being told, this is the way they've got to go.
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes you actually hear the voice, but more often than not, the voice appears within you. It either appears in your head or in your heart. It usually comes through my heart. And guidance always comes through the heart. It doesn't matter which realm of consciousness it's coming from. It nearly always comes through the heart. But depending on our individual makeup, determines which way we actually hear it. So sometimes we might hear it through the ears, we might feel it through the emotions, we might actually hear it in the mind, and sometimes we can actually feel it or experience the guidance or the voice in all of those different ways. For example, if I'm sorry, go ahead, Alan.
No, I was going to say that paramedic Colin, who is a regular listener of my Understanding Spirit show, and he's joined us this evening. He's put about what we're talking about. He's put it is feasible. After all, our DNA contains around 79% of what is all around us, except for synthetics and toxics. So, yeah, I mean, we are mainly water, aren't we? And we are connected to this earth. So we shouldn't be surprised by the fact that we get messages from the earth.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And messages from water.
Indeed. Yeah. Indeed.
For those who know of Emoto's work, the Japanese, I'm not sure whether you call him a scientist. I think that's how he started off, as a scientist stroke healer.
Yeah.
It's a long time since I've read his work now, but I was very drawn to his work with his very first book a number of years ago. And I knew there was absolutely something in that book that I needed for my own development. And I remember getting the book and reading it as fast as I could, trying to find this bit. And I think it came within about 6 pages of the end of the book. And as soon as I opened the page, I knew that's what I was actually looking for. So, excuse me. The spirit of the book was bringing the message. It's saying, Dave, you need to find this in here because it'll be another step on your path. And what it brought me, I read something about the way Emoto was conducting a particular healing. And although I knew how to do that, and I'd already used that method, when I read his words and his description of this way he was working, it suddenly opened up a whole new vista, a complete bunch of different avenues that I then explored and created my own healing methods in a fantastic array of new ways. So that's the spirit of that's the universe sending the spirit of a book, saying, there's a message in this book for you. And how many times do we walk into places and pick up a book knowing we have to take it home? And sometimes we never read it.
Yeah.
And we don't read it sometimes because all we need is the energy and the consciousness of that book within our environment.
It's a very odd thing that's happened to me over probably the last, 4 or 5 years. But, some people take a long time to read a book. And they'll digest it all. And if I've got a book or even a long email of somebody or whatever, it's almost like I don't actually call it photographic memory, but it's like scanning. It's almost like scanning through it and know exactly what it is. And I find that that's something that's happened to me over the last 4 or 5 years. It's strange.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I have a similar kind of thing. I can feel the vibration within the email of where the actual message is. Yes. So you might have an email of 20 lines, 25 lines, and I can feel where the real crux of the message is. And when you read the words and you feel the vibration, you know instantly whether you can help that person or not.
Yes. Yeah, that's very true. And I suppose from the title that was put up, what do we learn about ourselves? I suppose we learn in all different kinds of ways. What's right for one of us is, not right for the other person, vice versa. It's what we take from it, isn't it?
Yeah. And the answer to that question really is what do we learn about ourselves through spirit? The answer to that is everything.
Yeah.
What do we learn about ourselves without spirit? Well, we can learn many things through certain experiences, and how many times do we repeat the same old miserable patterns that bring us a lack of joy and misery, But when we're working with the light of spirit, it hits us very hard with the lessons we've got to learn in order to push us through them as fast as possible. And some of them are excruciatingly painful.
And sometimes we can, and I'm talking from a personal point of view, you can go through that painful experience and some years later find yourself doing exactly the same thing again that creates that situation, and you think to yourself, why?
Yeah.
What, surely I should have learned that the first time round.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I've always considered myself a slow learner. I have to suffer more than once to get the lesson. And I remember... Sorry, go on, Alan.
No, I was going to say, I reckon we must have been twins in a previous life at some point, Dave, because the experiences you've been through and I've been through, they're not that dissimilar, are they?
No, they're not at all. I remember when I first was going through my awakening, the universe took everything off me. It took me businesses, my house, my marriage. It left me. I'll tell you where I ended up. I ended up one night sleeping in a van on the motorway services, not knowing where I was going to go from there. And I started getting very cold late at night in this van. So I thought, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take off and go to my brother's house. And I went there and slept on the floor for a couple of nights. But, I did the same thing again. I built everything up again, and the universe took it all off me again a couple of years later. And the message was, you're not allowed to have anything. You have to learn to live on the edge and be in total trust. And that's where I am these days, I don't have an investment in a house or anything like that. I don't have any savings. I don't have a pension.
Same,
you just live. Yeah, you live on the edge and you trust that the universe will provide. And it takes you through some tough lessons to put you in that place, but this is how it creates spiritual teachers, by making you walk the path.
Yeah, because you look at some people, and obviously we don't know what other people's lives are like. Of course we don't. But I suppose we're all guilty of it, looking at somebody or whatever and thinking, how have they got all that together, a nice house, nice car, go on holidays. They seem as if they've got everything in order and in place. And then I suppose you ask the question, well, have they? They might have the trappings, but there again, they might. Who knows? Who knows? And we're all on to our journey because that's what we're meant to be doing. And somebody who's got the big house and the car and everything, who knows? Perhaps from previous lives, that's their reward in this life. I don't know. I think the answer is we are given what we're given, and it's up to us to do the best what we can with that, and not worry about what other people have got or haven't got.
Yeah. Well, I look at some people's lives, and I think they're having what I call a weekend off life. And I don't know whether I've ever mentioned this before, but the type of people, it's almost like they cruise through life without making any effort whatsoever, and they come out on the top of the pile all the time. And I just look at those people and I think they've done one heck of a lot of spiritual work in previous lives to be given the choice. It's like, okay, you can go down to earth now. Just have a life off. It's like, go and do whatever you want to do, and it's just all going to fall at your feet. And I always see that as, like you say, a reward. The universe works with a reward system. It's as simple as that. It's called karma.
Yes.
And by the choices we make, we either develop the good or the bad karma.
Well, that's it. Yeah, indeed. It's all right. I'm sorry. I do apologise. I was just reading what Dave, our producer, has just written. That's all. And I do remember that film that is on about A Weekend at Bernie's. I don't know if you ever saw it, Dave.
No, I've
Yeah.
not seen that.
Oh, the host dies, right, and he's a gangster or something, and they're frightened that they're going to get the blame. They haven't killed him, these two friends.
Yeah.
They pretend that he's still alive for the weekend. And this glamorous place on the beach. Yes, I remember the film. Very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, well, I'm not getting Dave's messages tonight for some reason or other, so anyway, that's that. I can't join in with a joke.
well, let's just be thankful that we've had virtually an hour without Skype doing anything so terrible on us as it did last week.
Yeah, we had fun last week, didn't we, trying to maintain the connection. So, yes, our hour is nearly up yet again, and
Yes.
I've really enjoyed it again, Alan.
Same here, Dave.
I think we should tell the listeners. We should tell the listeners what happens when we go off air. So normally we go off air, and then Alan dials me up again on Skype, and we have a bit of a chat, and we say, well, how did this go, and how did that go, and show by show, we always feel that the current show was a step forward on the previous one, and it feels like it's getting into a kind of groove now where it's starting to move forward without too much effort. It's developing a spirit and an energy of its own.
I like that. I'll share this because Colin's put it on there. He's put, hey Al, how about this? After last night, I got a phone call this morning, and there's £60 in the post to me from an insurance company that they told me they'd misquoted.
Excellent.
See, the universe is being kind to you, Colin. Enjoy it while you can.
Yeah. Universe is delivering.
That's right. Well, it's nice when that happens. It is. I think we've only probably got a couple of weeks left, so minutes left. Next week, you'll be back over here in dear old Blighty, won't you?
Back in sunny Shropshire, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Reacclimatising myself after 6 weeks in the balmy temperatures of Lanzarote, yeah.
You know something, really, it's gone so quick, hasn't it? Really,
Yeah.
when you think about it.
It has gone incredibly quick. And, I could stay out here. It's a fantastic place. It's very, very comfortable to be here. Yeah.
I must admit, I've been to Mallorca. I've never been to mainland Spain, Portugal, or the Canaries. But I do like Mallorca. So
yeah. Well, I would certainly recommend Lanzarote because it is a volcanic island, and you will either love or hate the landscape. It's as simple as that. Some people come here and they see nothing in it but rock, and other people come here and see nothing in the rock but beauty.
Yes.
And everybody that's been on our retreats, because they're switched on and spiritually connected, just absolutely love it. And people that haven't been on retreat before just say there's no way you could make this place up. It's just absolutely superb, every inch of it.
One of God's wonders.
Indeed.
Yeah. I think it's about time that we say goodnight to everybody. I know Dave hasn't put it up, but we must be getting very close to being kicked off. So I just want to say thank you, Dave, for letting me be part of your show. And I want to thank everybody in the chat room and everybody out there in internet land for being with us. And we'll be back, God willing, next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So, and I've just been told we've got 40 seconds, so whatever you want to say, Dave.
Well, I'd just like to say thanks very much for being part of my life, Alan. This show is just something between us. It seems to bring us together. Once a week, we have a great time chatting away and connecting, and I feel the connection is getting deeper and deeper all the time. So thanks very much, Alan, because you were the one that really initiated the show.
That great. I know it was meant. I know it was meant. So I think it's time we say goodnight.
Well, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
See you later.
Yeah, take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.